We last left off with Haseo finally summoning his avatar out of desperation as he came close to defeat from Bordeaux, striking her down with his newfound power, much to the horror of pretty much everyone. We get a glimpse at who exactly is able to see his avatar during the summoning too, signifying that there might be a little more to them than we think. The avatar Haseo summoned should be familiar to people who know about the original games. Hint hint, plug plug, go watch my old videos. His avatar is of Scathe, the original Terror of Death, the first phase of Morgana that you fight in the original games. Remember that ironic echo thing that I mentioned when Haseo first got data drained? I don't know, I just thought that was a really cool touch. Kuhn waits outside the arena to scold Haseo for misusing his avatar and putting innocent players at risk, and Haseo responds by basically cancelling out all the development he had up until now, pretty much resetting his character. Remember that whole 10 minutes where he cared about his friends and wanted to protect them and everything? Well, you can kind of forget about that. He's back to being a power-crazed psycho for another, let's say, hour. We actually find out that Bordeaux had passed out in the real world after getting struck down by Scathe, showing just how dangerous Haseo's abuse of an avatar can be. We also get a new online jack, meaning we have to tolerate Salvador being an actual criminal pervert by peeping on women on his show. But I guess we're just gonna ignore that. Salvador investigates a student who had been inflicted with doll syndrome, going into their home to check things out. He notices that the electronics in the home are going haywire, and the student in question is connected to his computer, although he's practically brain dead. He's only able to say one thing: Sakaki. Gee, I wonder if Sakaki's a bad guy. After some congratulations from Kennard, Haseo has another boring meeting with Yada, where he describes Haseo's mission now that he's able to summon an avatar. I guess we're also going to ignore how Haseo's totally willing to use his avatar on normal people. Even Pi mentioned that he's not fit to be an epitaph user, but we're just gonna wave it away now because Yada says to. Alright. He shows recent footage of Tri-Edge attacking 3 players with data drain, mentioning that they fell into comas just like Shino. Tri-Edge also managed to move into the area without using a gate like a normal player, meaning he's able to teleport around without being logged, almost like a ghost. With nothing more to go off on though, Haseo is tasked to investigate Ida by data draining it and collecting data. But not before a short introduction to even more characters. Haseo gets a message from Antires, ordering to meet with him so Haseo could be introduced to Ikolo, a guild only for champions of palace tournaments. Here he meets Sirius, the Emperor of the Holy Palace, Taihaku, Emperor of the Sage Palace, and Alkaid, former Empress of the Demon Palace before losing that title to Endrance. He also finds out that Antires was the founder of Ikolo, meaning he used to be an emperor himself. Sirius and Alkaid are pretty douchey to Haseo and Antires when they show up, showing the poor state of Ikolo. Alkaid herself is pretty aggro due to her losing her title to someone that she believes to have cheated. And here's how that conversation goes. Nuh-uh! And then Alkaid runs off. The whole scene just boils down to, yet again, Haseo, you're really weak, you should get stronger, be a better person. You know, like what's been happening in every other scene. And it wouldn't be needed if Haseo didn't lose all of his development in one motion. Finally, some progress in something more interesting. Haseo gets some training from Pi regarding using an avatar, and we actually get to use an avatar as a game mechanic, in what I think is the most fun thing in Volume 1. When you encounter an enemy that needs to be taken out with an avatar, Haseo will summon Scathe automatically, taking the battle into the epitaph space. Here things turn into a shooter hack and slash style game, where you have to focus on dodging enemy attacks and striking when the time is right. When you get the enemy's health down, it's time to pull off a data drain by hitting them with a perfect shot when the opening shows itself. It can get a little repetitive, but I really like the music, the action, the feeling of attacking, and just the whole look of the space too. In fact, I really like the designs of the avatars and everything involving epitaphs in general, Ida's included. They all got this like tribal, spiritual, yet techno look to them. I really like it. Pi tasks Haseo with taking out 3 Idas in an area, and once he's done, she gets reports of a rise in Ida activity. Investigating further leads to 2 players who stand in the way of an aggressive Ida, forcing Pi to jump in the way to save them, infecting herself. Her avatar starts to go berserk and she begs Haseo to go get Kuhn to try and data drain her, but Haseo refuses, opting to save her himself, starting a fight with her avatar, Tarvos. Yeah, instead of outright battles like the original series, all avatar fights take place in this little gameplay section, with the enemy having all sorts of fun attacks and patterns to get used to. I like it, and I love the fact that the OST adds more and more to the avatar battle theme with every fight, just like the original games. It's the little touches like these that make the battles all the more fun. Nothing much to really talk about regarding the fight though. We take on Tarvos and data drain Pi at the end of the fight, getting rid of the Ida infecting her, with Haseo actually showing a bit of genuine fear and care for her.
Hey, come on, snap out of it! What are you doing? Now wake up! Wake up! Please wake up! I said wake up!
Pi turns out to be fine, actually, with her mind still intact. It seems that the Ida was the only thing that was drained. The two that Pi saved introduced themselves as Kaede and Zelkova, both of them thanking Haseo and Pi and promising to pay them back. With the mission done, and Pi finding a new respect and friendship with Haseo, they return home, completely ignoring the fact that Haseo still intends to use his avatar against people. Hey, another bit of good news. We finally get some character side quests, and the first one we get is...
Convince your parents with your burning spirit! Make a miracle happen!
Aww.
I had never seen a player with such an awesome character. I was so moved.
Ah! Yes, it seems that Gaspard and Pyros actually know each other and are pretty good friends, which I do like. It's nice to know that the party members we hang out with also hang out with other people. Back in the original games, it kind of felt like most of the characters didn't have any other friends but Kite, which, I mean... Despite Gaspard being part of the quest though, it's mostly about Pyros. During the quest, we meet a lone player that gazes at everything in the world with a sadness to him, and we find out that it's because he wants to become a graphic designer when he graduates from college. But his parents refuse to support him unless he goes into the courses that they want for him, sending him into a depression where he considers giving up on his dream. Pyros says, "Listen, you ninny-twisting binky boy, never give up on your dreams. Let your burning passion drive you forward and never falter," and charges into battle with a boss monster, inspiring the kid with his fighting spirit, motivating him to go into graphic design after all. In all seriousness, I know I joke and give Pyros a hard time, and I especially did so in the original games, but I actually like that he's somewhat competent in this game, and every interaction isn't just dunking on how much of an idiot he is. I made fun of him before because, well, the game made fun of him, but now that he's actually helpful, I see him as an alright guy. It also helps that he doesn't hijack the main story anymore. Or, well, not nearly as often at least. We then get invited to Moontree for unknown reasons. Atoli thinks it's because Haseo pissed some people off, but it's actually because Zelkova and Kaede were also part of the council in Moontree, and wanted to give Haseo and Pi a personal thank you and a personal introduction. Zelkova turns out to be the whole guildmaster of Moontree, while Kaede is basically his caretaker who's way too invested in this player. We're also given a good look at Moontree's headquarters, having a very Japanese traditional feel to it, which furthers the contrast between Kestrel and Moontree, in both ideals and design. We then get a proper introduction to the other council members. Kinda. 3 of them are missing, and it turns out Matsu, Sakaki's lackey, is also a council member himself. Pi messages Haseo in secret to fill him in on the politics going on in Moontree at the same time, describing a split in people that believe Zelkova deserves to be the guildmaster, and people that believe that Sakaki should be the leader, and Zelkova is just a figurehead, which kind of furthers the idea that Sakaki might be a bad guy. Matsu decides to be a prick about Haseo's win in the arena, threatening him and letting him know that he's also part of the Demon Palace tournament. And it just so happens that Haseo is his next opponent. And this basically sets up the next story beat. You're getting the pattern here now, right? Good. Before the fight actually starts, Haseo bullies Atoli in their... locker room? Waiting room? Where is this? Whatever. He berates Atoli for depending so much on Sakaki, teasing her and claiming that she might just backstab the group for Moontree, which just feels really out of nowhere. Like, Haseo was mean before, but he was never this tormenting and antagonizing, and it just really resets everything he built up regarding protecting his friends. We get to the fight itself, and... he's really easy. The fight constantly gets interrupted by Matsu talking about getting worked up and using his full power, but he goes down in like a few hits. There's this big moment where we find out that he's not actually the class he comes off as, and reveals that he's actually an adept rogue that locked away his other weapon when he stopped PKing. Which sounds really dumb, but let's keep going with it. It actually brings up a pretty satisfying bit of development where Zelkova asks Matsu if he's satisfied, now that he's fought someone that he could consider a proper opponent. Matsu realizes that's all he wanted the entire time, and feels that he doesn't need to fight players anymore, now that he's fought Haseo. He even gives Haseo his greatsword as a thanks. There's a cutscene between Ova and Anyata, the the two characters with the most boring ways of speaking, having a chat in the Lost Grounds. Ovan mentions that something is beyond the wall of the area, before saying he has to leave soon, before the pursuer arrives. Likely talking about Haseo since he was on his way here after being invited by Pyros. Because it obviously isn't Pyros. I mean, come on, really? Be a little serious here. Haseo also walks in on a chat between Alkaid and Entrance. And by chat, I mean Alkaid calling him a cheater for the way he beat her, and Entrance just sorta standing there. Haseo walks in when Alkaid leaves to say that he'll actually be the one to fight Entrance in the end. Entrance tells Haseo, "Nah, you're actually weak though," and then walks off. Hey, how long has it been since Matsu had that development? Like 10 minutes? Well, you could throw all that out the window now. Because fuck actually getting to keep your development in which you improve yourself when you could just go back to the one personality trait you had as a crutch for your entire character. We get a side quest that involves Syllabus and Gaspard. Syllabus actually inviting us because it's been a while since the three of them just hung out. But this might as well be a solo mission because they barely say anything. It's a mission that's mostly about Matsu being a competitive dick. Outright challenging Haseo to a duel, being like, "Come on bitch, fight me, I'll fuck you up," even though he was just talking about being satisfied and not needing to be so aggro anymore. Thankfully, he chills out when he finds out that there's actual PKs around, and he hasn't exactly been doing his job. Hey, sorry man, please don't tell on me. Right before the match with Alkaid, Haseo has some trouble talking to Atoli because of how much of a dick he was in the last match. And we have a scene where Kuhn and Pai talk about how weak Haseo is, and how he'll definitely have to use his avatar to beat Alkaid. This is the third time people have talked about how weak Haseo is. And when the match starts, the announcers talk about how little of a chance Haseo has. This is one of the biggest problems I have with Vol.1. The game constantly talks about how weak Haseo is and how tough his enemies are. But the game doesn't really do anything to, back it up. Because hey, guess what? The fight with Alkaid is easy as hell and she barely does any damage to me. The game has to actually stop and cheat to make her somewhat intimidating, by giving her a sudden awakening, and even then she still doesn't do much damage. But we're supposed to treat it like she's bashing Haseo into the ground. If you're gonna talk about how shitty and weak the protagonist is, you gotta actually make the opponent we fight somewhat intimidating. I know I keep going on about how easy the game is, but when you're constantly bashing the protagonist and at the same time the player for being weak, it takes the tension away and adds a lot of frustration when they actually hit like wet noodles. So of course Haseo ends up using his avatar. But honestly, I really like this scene. It sounds like the pressure and stress of everyone telling him he's never gonna beat her is what pushes him into summoning his avatar in the first place. And he uses it out of complete fear and desperation.
Just you wait. I'm going to take her down without even using my avatar.
It's not a place where you can whiz just because you say it.
No, not without using the avatar.
A rival? Him? He looks weak.
It's too bad nobody ever talks about this fact, and it's treated as all completely Haseo's fault. So that ends the fight. This being the second time out of 3 arena fights where we don't get to finish the fight ourselves and we're told that we're actually losing. Usually I'm super psyched for tournament arcs, but this is making me see why some people call them boring. Alkaid whines and calls Haseo a cheater, while Pai and Kuhn decide that it's finally time to put the moody child with a coma-inducing gun into timeout. Back at the area that Pyros was checking out, we find that he hasn't moved from the spot and actually fell asleep at some point. About what you'd expect, really. Thankfully, something of worth does happen when Haseo spots Atoli and Sakaki coming into the area, with Sakaki asking if she hears anything. It turns out that she does, right behind the big wall, but it's different from that. Sakaki also mentions keeping an eye on Haseo, and right away, Haseo isn't happy about that. He's also curious about Atoli hearing things. It's time for the semifinals, and oh god! Why is Yada an announcer? I know I keep ragging about how boring he is to listen to, but he's so boring. He has no energy in his voice. He has nothing interesting going on. Why is he an announcer? A more pleasant surprise, Antiris turns out to be Kuhn and Pai's third party member. Really just here to slap Haseo back into being a decent good boy instead of a little rash baby. Kuhn and Haseo have a little talk that goes about as well as you'd expect. And hey, guess what? The fight goes almost exactly like Alkaid and Bordeaux's, where you can kick their ass as much as you want, but the game will say Haseo is having trouble, so he has an excuse to summon his avatar. This time though, Haseo's against someone that could actually fight back while he's doing this. And Kuhn brings out his avatar, Magus, to do just that. You know, I'm at least glad that they let me play something with this rather than just end the fight with a cutscene. I still believe that these avatar fights are a lot of fun, even if Kuhn's a bit of a cheap-ass bitch with lasers, you piece of shit. Haseo beats on Kuhn pretty hard. In fact, he goes a little overboard, more than even he feels comfortable with, as he starts to lose control of Skaith completely. Kuhn and Haseo have one last conversation with each other during the beatdown, with Kuhn finally getting through to Haseo after he despairs over his lost power. Avatars are powerful and made manifested through emotion, but they also amplify the dark side of people's hearts too. If Haseo wants to keep going, he should always be prepared to lose something that is precious to him.
And be prepared to protect something precious to you.
Stop it! Kuhn! Run! Run away!
I guess I was never really prepared for this kind of thing.
Please! Just go!
I'm sorry, but this was the only way I could think of.
Don't! Stop! 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 Stop!
Yeah, he's fine, by the way. Like, literally the second after this cutscene ends, it turns out it was a fake out. Apparently, Magus has the ability to propagate data, so Kuhn propagated his own data to make up for the data that Skaith drained. Kind of a cop-out if you ask me. I mean, there was all this build-up and emotional tension from Haseo actually facing the threat of putting someone he cares about into a coma. But instead of having him live with that, it feels more like he gets a slap on the wrist and gets sent on his way. Anyway, Kuhn and Haseo make up, and Haseo learns his lesson that winning isn't everything and that he should control himself and think about others. Also, Kuhn forfeits the match. So, what did everyone else see? I mean, we know that avatars aren't visible to normal players, and an avatar attack happens in a quick flash to people. So was everyone just watching and getting hyped only to suddenly see Kuhn on the floor? Kind of a letdown of a fight if you ask me, at least from a spectator's perspective. Before we challenge entrants in the finals, Yada has a talk with us to tell us what Kuhn's assignment was, expecting us to take up the task now that he can't anymore. The short version is that GU just wants to know more about entrants, his connection to Ida, and his avatar. But he only interacts with people in the arena. Kuhn also invites us to a side quest where we get to learn more about him. And by that I mean we see that he's still a womanizer.
You're in grade school?
Yeah, 3rd grade.
3rd grade? So you're what, 9 years old?
Oh, great, that means we can leave early, right?
This is the perfect accessory for you. Thoughtful on the outside, but burning with passion on the inside.
Oh, Kuhn, no.
I didn't know you had a thing for younger girls. She's much too young for you.
Kuhn, no!
Hey, her being young had nothing to do with it. I'm a champion to all female players.
There's also a side quest where we get to hang out with Pai and this incredibly whiny child. She literally just calls Haseo a cheater through the whole dungeon until Pai gets sick of it and scolds her, which actually makes her stop talking. For like 5 seconds. Later in the dungeon, we save her and she thanks us by letting us have the items, before running off like a tsundere. That's her, that's arcade. Before the match actually starts, we get a look at Entrance having a talk with Saku. She's being her usual horrible self, scheming on how to sabotage Haseo so he doesn't actually challenge Entrance, to which Entrance tells her to stop, because he thinks there's nothing to really be afraid of. Saku does actually stop, though it's clear that she's doing it more so that Entrance notices her, which isn't really working out for her that much. We're almost to the finals, I promise. There's just one last detour we have to make, and this is about something outside of the game. Here we go. Back when GU was still on the PS2, limited editions of the game were released with Vol.1, containing something called the Terminal Disc. Now with Last Recode out, all copies of Last Recode come with Terminal Disc. What Terminal Disc does is release various files and background information based on your progress through the games. This is a neat idea. I like the idea of slowly unveiling more and more information based on how far you are in the game. The problem comes with how the information is spread out. It's not a straight line on when and what you unlock. At first, you start with an introduction video and little videos that explain the events of the original 4 games, which also makes my videos completely pointless, but we're gonna ignore that. Then when you get a save file in Volume 1 of the GU games, you get entry number 10, and when you finish Rebirth, you get entry number 6. What you unlock is sort of just everywhere, and it doesn't feel like it's like that for any other reason than to be convoluted. So what I'm gonna do is bring up the info of terminal discs when I deem it most appropriate and when I think it has the most impact to what's going on in the story of GU, while trying to be as close to when it's revealed as possible. Just bear with me here, it's a lot of info. The first video is an introduction to the person that made these terminal discs, Jun Bunsiaya, an AI researcher that works at CC Corp. What is stored in the terminal discs is his own view of the truth, from the experiences he had as he worked on Project GU, the original Project GU. At the end of the original DotHack games, Aura was reborn into the world as the ultimate AI, making her the caretaker of both the game and the entire internet itself. But on December 24th, 2014, a giant crash occurred and Aura vanished, leaving the world in disarray and CC Corp with an increasingly growing bad reputation. CC Corp saw only one solution to this mess: to bring Aura back or make their own ultimate AI, dubbing the entire plan the Return Aura Plan and giving the assignment to a new group named Project GU. They tried to do this by recreating Morgana Mode Gone with the remnants of the 8 phases they could find, while putting them under the control of players, inspired by the way Sora and Mia seem to be connected to their respective epitaphs. The first phase they managed to find and put into a PC, dubbing it an Epitaph PC, is Magus, the Propagator. An odd complication they found though was that people that tested the PC out experienced sickness and physical complications, leaving only a specific person as a proper candidate to use the PC. The lead programmer of Project GU, Jotaro Amagi, suspected this to be a bond similar to what Sora and Skate had. Soon enough, they found the rest of the phases with no problems, except for Maha, who was inside Mia's character. Seeing her as just a chunk of data and nothing more, Amagi destroyed Mia just to get Maha's data from her, without a moment of hesitation or warning. Something went wrong with the testing process though, leaving 80% of the world's data destroyed and the headquarters of CC Corp burned in a fire. CC Corp had no other choice but to abandon the world, moving what data they could recover to a completely new game, dubbing it the World R2. The announcement for the deletion of the original game went out, and received a response that was a mix of sadness and anger, with people meeting up in the last moments of the world to say goodbye or promise to meet each other in another way. But among those people, one boy would never see their friend again, nor would he see them after the world.
That is impossible. Sorry. After all, there's no way that she will allow me to lose.
Who is she?
Elk, a lonely little wave master, wouldn't even see his best friend weeks before the disaster. To Elk, Mia most likely just disappeared out of nowhere one day. He probably logged on, went to his favorite spot, and waited. And waited, and waited, until he realized that she probably wasn't coming that day. Or the next. Or the next.
Not enough. Not nearly enough. At this rate, she will never be happy. Come, help me satisfy her.
And when the world announced its closing, he probably realized that his best friend, his first friend, and probably his first love, was gone. Forever.
Where am I? What is this place? I I don't like it here. You're not here.
I want you to imagine how that must feel. Your best friend, your only friend, one that you've already had a scare of losing for a moment, just disappears.
Why aren't you here with me in this world?
Huh?
Is it because I'm weak? Is that the reason why?
You don't even get a warning. You don't get anyone to deliver the news or to give you their condolences, and people probably wouldn't even understand what you were so attached to begin with. But you have those memories, you know what you feel about them, and you know the impact they had in your life. And eventually, after days and days of waiting, of feeling that worry in your chest, of thinking, did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? Was it me? You realize that your friend is just gone, and you're never getting them back.
I will get stronger. You'll see. Then will you please stay with me forever?
That's what Elk felt. And that's what he felt going into the World R2 as well. Elk probably came into this new world completely alone, with no interest to find anyone else, still heartbroken from losing Mia. He was never good with people, never felt confident around people, so he probably spent his days online and on his computer alone.
With you gone, I was all alone again, until she appeared to me. I was so happy then, because you were my only friend, because you were all I wanted. But it's fine now. She has returned. She has returned from the outside world.
Until one day, he found something. Something odd. Something that wasn't right, or clearly not part of the world. Something that looked awful familiar.
I am no longer alone. She may look a bit different now, but I knew exactly who it was right away.
Maybe he saw it as a second chance, or maybe he saw it as his old friend given new form. But either way, he knew that he wanted to keep it. To keep her, and to make sure that she never left him ever again. He made sure to be the strongest, to be the #1 person in her eyes, to never have her get bored, just to desperately cling on to her, fearing that one day she'll leave him again.
If I don't finish this soon, she will disappear. She'll leave me.
Even leaving his computer, going outside, meeting new people, that brought up the chance of her leaving, slipping away without another word again.
I do not want to be alone anymore. I don't want to lose anything. Ever again!
So he stayed, and he fought, and he stayed, and he fought over and over and over again, just so he could be with his Mia, forever. Elk, or now Endrance I guess is more appropriate, is one of my favorite characters in all of GU, maybe even all of DotHack in general, because of how tragic his story is, and how, I guess to me personally, relatable he is and how it must feel to lose someone like that so suddenly. He didn't have a chance to say goodbye. He had a responsibility that he put on himself to help Mia get her memories back by the end of the original games. And in the end, he probably blamed himself for losing her. He was broken, and by the time we fight and beat him, he still is broken. And the only way to help him be a semblance of okay is by pulling him out of this fantasy he keeps himself in. And so the finals end, and Endrance disappears, leaving Haseo to celebrate his victory with his friends. Most of them are happy, maybe a little snotty and snippy, but for the most part, it's a good time. Until Haseo realizes that Atoli is missing. During his search, Ovan actually finds Atoli first in a secluded area, where he gets chummy enough with her to tell her all about Haseo's past with Shino, including how similar she looks to Shino. Haseo only manages to find the two at the end of their conversation, when Ovan finally drops the idea that Haseo only really looks at Atoli because he's really looking at Shino, which pushes Atoli over the edge.
I enjoyed being with you. That was why I wanted to become closer friends with you. I know I'm so slow and clumsy, and I know how much I irritated you. But even so, I wanted to go on a lot more adventures with you. I was really happy when you invited me to the arena. That's why I studied so hard by myself. About arts, spells, the different jobs, and the timing for recovery. Everything. I wanted you to smile. I wanted you to praise me. But that was all for nothing. You weren't adventuring with me. No! You were just looking at Shino all this time. God, I'm such an idiot. No matter what, there's no reason for this. If you won't look at me.
Atoli runs off as the party ends, following advice that Ovan gave to her. Find Tri-Edge using her hearing ability. She goes to investigate the lost grounds with the wall, believing that if she could find Tri-Edge beyond it, Haseo will finally look at Atoli as Atoli. Meanwhile, Yara calls Haseo over to discuss another investigation, finally dropping the news that Atoli is an Epitaph user, no fucking duh, and they knew this after Haseo had entered the Demon Palace tournament with her. Haseo calls Yara out for not telling him.
Of course not. All you wanted was information about Tri-Edge and Shino. You weren't interested in the activities of GU.
Really, bitch? We've cemented multiple times that Epitaph users need to be approached, investigated, and taken care of carefully. And you're going to actually withhold information just to be spiteful? What if she activated her avatar at some point? Whoops, people are in comas now because you wanted to spite a 17-year-old. Yara shows footage of Atoli disappearing into the wall in the Lost Grounds, letting Haseo rush over there with Pai and Kuhn. As everyone leaves, Yara has a conversation with Ovan, revealing that Ovan was the one that gave Yara the video in the first place, with the objective of having Haseo grow. Haseo, Kuhn, and Pai rush to the area Atoli was last seen, finding the sign there reacting strangely. It ends up teleporting the group into a room that should look familiar to those that remember the strange rooms in the original games, though no Epitaph reading is waiting for us there. Instead, Atoli is there, still adamant about finding Tri-Edge, believing that Haseo was never really looking at her ever since they met. As much as I make fun of Atoli, hearing her yell out these lines and the way she thinks of herself is really heartbreaking.
What are you talking about? I'm looking at you right now.
If you were, you never would have said what you said.
What? What did I say to you?
That I was too irritating. That you never want to see my face again.
No. That was...
Yes, it was. If you were actually seeing me, you never would have said that. If there was a stronger cleric, you would have chosen that person and not me. If there was a character that looked more like Shino, you would have relied on her. Well, am I right?
No, you idiot! That's not it at all!
I am an idiot! That's the way I am! That's why I got the wrong impression. I know better than anyone how much of an idiot I am!
If you keep calling yourself an idiot, you'll become one someday.
Tri-Edge shows up in the middle of the argument, having a standoff with Haseo. It's clear that he either isn't interested in talking or just not capable of talking in general, because all questions are met with a low growl.
So, are you a hacker? An Epitaph user? What are you, an Ida? Damn you, say something already! I won't let you. You won't get away again! Give us back all of the lost ones!
A fight starts soon enough, in an attempt to get every lost one back. This is where we also get an idea of what Triage's true identity is, or at least his true name, Azure Kite. He obviously isn't Kite though, but he mimics his attacks from the original game, albeit with a bit more flair. The normal battle ends quick enough, but Azure Kite doesn't go down that easy, instead transforming himself into Azure Flame God. Let's just ignore how dumb that name sounds, because the Avatar fight that follows is both my favorite Avatar fight and my favorite fight in general in all of Volume 1. I love his references to Kite's old moves distorted into these wild attacks, I love his design, I love his special moves he uses on you, and I especially love the music, bringing back motifs and instruments from the old games, even carrying over the quality of the music from the old games. The only issue I have with the fight is his, voice. With enough persistence, we managed to get him down enough to data drain him, making him fall apart into data before the rest of the group could even figure out how to bring back the lost ones. With Triage gone, the group find themselves basically back to square one, but at the very least, they could be happy that Atoli is safe. If only for a few more moments.
Atoli! Get away from there!
What?
And that almost ends the game. We still got a post-game to do, baby. There's actually not a lot to do in the post-game, and a lot of it is stuff that you could just do whenever you want. You could redo the Avatar fights back in Raven's at home, and that just nets you some wallpapers and movies. You can go looking for this thing called Mega Grunty 50 times for a few items and the sake of completion, and you can do some bounty hunter-ing, where you fight specific, very powerful PKs. Apparently the game was so rampant with PKs that CC Corp made a bounty list for the top PKs just to try and get people to fight them. And that didn't seem to work because nobody was going after them until we started doing it. You could also look for other players and hand them flyers for this NPC, which is just another gauge or tracker on how many NPCs you've talked to. A lot of this stuff only really nets you a few extra wallpapers, movies, music, or items that I never really use. There's only two real things that you could do that net you anything interesting. The first is fight your doppelganger, which is a type of NPC that spawns in an area if you either take too long or achieve certain conditions. He's supposed to be super hard because he reflects everything you do and reflects your stats too. He's also always a higher level than you no matter what, though there's nothing really of note about him regarding the battle, but he does give you some pretty good weapons depending on what you beat him with, which I think is pretty cool. The last thing you could do is finish the Serenunos questline. Throughout the game, you'd get these area codes for a side questline involving a cult of characters trying to revive the god of the underworld, Serenunos. They do this by marking you and attempting to steal your life force. This is all in-game lore, by the way. It basically means they just send some weak-ass enemies at you every time you encounter them. You get one last area code in the post-game to finally take on Serenunos himself, and the area itself is absolutely pathetic. It's 3 floors of literally nothing except for one group of enemies on each floor, and the enemies that you do fight start off in the lowest levels and only really get up to as high as mid-level, when by the post-game you're going to be capped out at the max level the game lets you be, so every fight ends in about 2 or 3 hits. What feels even more insulting is when you talk to your allies, they talk about how tough the enemies are. Syllabus, come on man, really dude? Serenunos himself is alright, I guess. He got my health down pretty low, but then I just used healing items to get myself back to max health and I went right back to cutting him in the dick. This side quest in general felt like a big waste of time. The areas are really boring, and the questline where you fight a dead god feel really lackluster. There's nothing here that makes it all worth it aside from some alright armor, I guess. It's not a huge difference from other pieces of armor that you can get. Man, this postgame is kinda lame. And that, finally, wraps up the last thread of Volume 1, Rebirth. And boy was that a lot. Certainly a lot more to talk about than Infection. I can't just tell you it's a good game still after dunking on it so much from start to finish. And I have to mention its flaws. It's only fair to let you know everything about it and to put down how I feel about it. But through all the tedium and pointless story beats, the lame-ass characters, and the story events that just don't make any sense, I still see a lot of potential in this, and that's the most frustrating thing about Volume 1. It's got the makings of something great. The battles themselves can be really fun when you combo your charge attacks and bounce enemies off the walls to keep your combo going. I love keeping up your advantage by finishing off your combo with a heavy Rengeki attack, and I love the idea of keeping things fresh by allowing Haseo to use more than just one weapon. But the game is just so mindless. There's nothing to really make me feel like I need to use any sort of tactics, like I need to think or do anything cool because the game just overlevels you and makes everything a cakewalk. And that's even more upsetting when the game constantly talks about how hard certain battles are without ever backing up those claims. I feel the same about the characters too. There's points and details about characters that I love. Hell, there's even characters in general that I love, like Endurance, and even Atoli at certain points has some great moments to her. But there's also characters that just feel like a typical anime stereotype with a character flaw that doesn't have any sort of real development, and is just there to be a character trait that you could just laugh at and move on. These characters drag down the story so much, especially when the story decides to focus on them. I don't feel sorry for Gaspard, I don't like Gaspard, I don't ever warm up to him because he just stays as this bumbling, crying idiot for the entire series. At the very least, I could say positively that the game sets itself up for something greater. There's still 3 more volumes after this one, after all, and they all improve on each other more and more, in terms of both gameplay and, in my opinion, story as well. You just really have to have some patience with Volume 1. In Part 1, I saw a lot of people take my opinion of the game as completely negative, and honestly I can't blame them. Even in this part, I feel like I really ragged on the game, but I can't say that the whole series still isn't worth looking at. I can still recommend getting into the series if you could slog through Volume 1, because I promise, despite my smart-ass comments, the rest of the volumes are so worth it. So I'm sorry that I was harsh on this game for its fumbles and its missed potential, but I still really hope you'll join me for when we get to the next volume, because there's still a lot more questions left unanswered, and a lot more people we need to save. I'll see you then. Hey, this is ModalBeat, or Modal, I guess if you want to call me that, talking completely unscripted here. I just wanted to say at the end of the video here, thank you so much for watching, and also for everybody that was waiting for not only this, but for the GU series covering in general. I know I kept everybody waiting a really long time, and I hope I don't do that again. It's just been kind of a wild year. I think everybody can agree on that. 2020 is kind of crazy. Anyways, I just want to say thank you so much, and to let you guys know that I am probably going to, it's not really a break from DotHack, it's more like I'm going to cover the games kind of on a buy basis. Like I'm going to cover one DotHack game and then cover something completely unrelated, a much shorter video that's much faster to get out, and then cover another DotHack game in a sort of on and off pattern, just because it helps me not get burnt out from covering DotHack in general. I think it's gonna really keep me in a better headspace than just looking at DotHack for an entire year, because that's gonna just exhaust me. So that's all I wanted to say. Oh, also, actually, I stream on Twitch on a hopefully will be regular basis. You could go over to the Twitch link down below in the description, or you could follow me on Twitter to see when exactly I'm going to be streaming. I will be planning on streaming on the day of this video's release, hopefully. So keep an eye on that. Once again, follow me on Twitter if you want the exact details on when I'll be streaming and when I'll be streaming after today as well. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.